Okay, Americans, tariffs. What the hell are tariffs? And who really pays for tariffs? Well, I'm Michael Fedlin. I actually was an international attorney for a couple of decades, starting with the Fortune 500. And my job was negotiating these international sales deals, pushing our product into other countries. So tariffs is what I had to learn and deal with all the time. Far cry from growing up on a farm in Iowa. If I had never left it, I wouldn't have a clue. So here's the story, folks. You pay the tariffs, not China, not somebody else. Now here's why that is significant. You've been told that the exporter is going to pay and it's going to pump all this money into our treasury. Well, 100 or so years ago, tariffs was the only way of getting income because we didn't have an income tax, and countries just did that to pass along the cost. But as it turns out, that wasn't a really clever way of doing it. We moved into more of a free trade thing because typically, basically, the less you tax, the more transactions you have back and forth, and you're not penalizing your people for buying whatever it is they want. Now, 50 plus years ago, okay, yeah, we did have cars made, Henry Ford, everything was made in America, done. All right, Japan, same thing, all they made was there. Europe, same thing. Then it became the fact that Japanese got really good at what they're doing, so they're starting to import their products over here, freaking out the American car manufacturers. Oh my God, they're a better product, less money. Just like the Chinese electric company BYD now makes a far better electric vehicle than Tesla. And so a tariff in a limited sense can make sense for okay, we got to protect our domestic electric vehicle manufacturers, be it Ford, Chevy, or Tesla even. But when you apply it across the board, it absolutely makes no sense, because what you've done is you've taken Joe Biden's 2.9% inflation and you just made it 10%, 50%, or even 100% inflation immediately overnight. I mean, whoa. I thought we were trying to get lower egg prices, not double them or triple them, right? Now, here's the thing. Not everybody makes the same thing. I mean, we get coffee from South America, Africa. We don't grow coffee here, do we? No. Tea comes from India. Do we make tea? No. So what sense does it make to put a 10% tariff on everything we buy when we're not in the coffee business, tea business, and a lot of other things going on out there? So it's absurd on its face, and really it's kind of like economic arson to do this kind of thing, because you're penalizing the people who pay. It's you and me. We have the importer who pays the tax, puts it to the treasury, is not going to eat it. They're going to pass that cost on to whatever you're buying at Walmart, Target, or wherever. So you end up paying a lot more for really no reason at all. Now, this whole thing about negotiations, well, normally you just go negotiate. You don't say, I'm going to shoot your cow and then we can talk about, negotiating a deal, right? It's kind of harsh, and people don't take well to being bullied. That's not how you do it. Let's talk about a couple specifics. Because China is the largest economy behind ours. They make all the iPhones, laptop, computers, etc. Now, they really only had a 7% tariff going into China on our products. I've been there, negotiated with them, China, India, etc. Pretty modest. But what does Trump do? His tariff is 34%. I don't know where that crazy number came from. So China says, well, F you, we'll make ours 84%. And Trump says, F you, now it's 100% and 104%. Holy crap. Where does this make any sense, people? Um, you just raised the cost of buying, a computer 100%, or, your next iPhone. Car prices. Cars used to be made right here, right then, but now, global manufacturing has changed. That's why we had the NAFTA and then the U.S., Mexico, Canada, whatever the heck that thing Trump called, which made for a tariff-free flow of parts and goods. So all the parts for your car, some come from Mexico, some from Canada, some we do here, put it all together, boom, boom, boom. But when you start throwing tariffs like crazy on top of all those parts going back and forth, your car is now $5,000 to $10,000 more. How does that make sense? That you might get some manufacturing years from now because it takes forever to build a plant and it might only employ a couple thousand people. But in the meantime, you've added about $5 trillion to the consumer cost of all these goods coming into the U.S., which is absurd and crazy. It doesn't help. India had 11% tariff on drugs going to India. Well, the Indians pay that, right? Not us. Why did we have to mess with it? So now half of our generics get imported from India. They're a minimum 10% more. 10% inflation instead of 2% under Biden. Where does that help you? And so it just gets more absurd as you go. Madagascar sells vanilla to us because they've got, plants, and that's what they do. We don't do anything like that. But they don't buy as much as they sell because they're kind of a poor country. So they're going to be buying our jets and cars and all that. So now, because they had a, quote, deficit, Trump's going to slap a 10, 15%, 20%, whatever it is, tariff on the vanilla coming from Madagascar that we don't make. That's not going to cost you another 10% or more at the store. How does that help you? Did it create one job? No, it just penalizes your pocketbook. It's called economic arson. And it's bizarre. It makes no sense. It's going about creating the world of business works on stability. That you know what your costs look like, and it's everything's okay. We can figure it out. But under Trump, it's crazy town. You don't know from one day to the next they're going to put this up, pull it down. He wakes up in a bad mood. Suddenly you got another tariff. Oh, and we're not even putting a tariff on Russia that invaded Ukraine. We got tariffs on penguins, and places where there's nothing but penguins, but no tariff on Russia. That is a rogue terrorist state. And hello, we do buy about $3 billion worth of Russian crap every year. No tariff. Where does that make any sense? So now you've got the market being, even the billionaires were going bust under this thing. So that's why probably they called and screamed, what the hell? And we're going to put it off for 90 days. Well, that's still not certain, okay? Because you don't know what he's going to wake up tomorrow and do. And again, 90 days, that doesn't give you time to really prepare to spend money and expect to not have the boat rock getting it all back, right? So basically, you can't run an economy. Now, 100 or so years ago, before there was income tax, countries did have tariffs for income. That is long gone, folks. It doesn't pay the bills. My God. Now, in exchange for cutting all the veterans' health benefits, cutting the people from all these various agencies with a meat axe, whether they're good or bad, doesn't matter, just cut. They're doing it so they can cut the expenses, so they can turn around and give, yes, another $5 trillion to the rich in tax cuts that are going to get added to the debt and partially paid for by you no longer having, Medicare and healthcare and all these other things going, or researchers on diseases. We still got bird flu. We got all these other issues out there. that are now going to be totally ignored. How does this make America great? It doesn't even make it sane. So basically, we're in a pickle. Now, 25% of our total national debt was generated by Trump in his first term, $8 trillion. Yeah, it took 250 years to build up all this debt, and Trumpo in 4 years managed to, put 25% of the debt right there. Can you imagine what he's going to do in another 4 years? And on top of that, the consumers are looking at about a $5 to $6 trillion increase in their costs by these stupid tariffs. How does that help anybody, right? And it's not going to generate, it takes years to build a factory here that might employ, like I said, a couple thousand people. So we all pay trillions of dollars in our pocket buying coffee and tea and things like that, so that maybe a couple, 3, 4 years from now, we get a couple more thousand jobs. Hello, where does that make sense? Biden actually did it right. He brought in and targeted where we would have high-tech manufacturing with high-tech wages, big wages, right? These guys in China that are making the little turn the screw in the iPhone all day long, you're going to get Americans to do that? Hell no. For $4 an hour like they do in China? Hell no. They wouldn't do it for $15 an hour, right? And then probably you never get anybody to work. So basically what they're doing is throwing a monkey wrench in the entire global economic system, and you're pissing off people, and you're going to drive them in the arms of China because we're no longer reliable, because we're crazy town. You just don't know what's going to come out of his mouth every day. Oh, they're kissing my ass, he says. No, they're not. They're just having to try to do with a wild person who doesn't know economics, never took economics 101 apparently. If he did, he flunked it, because this is not how you run a country, where you can't determine what's going to come out of his head tomorrow. Oh my God, tariff war. That's what that's in the 1920s during the robber baron days. The biggest income inequality is what we had then, which is what we now have again because of Republican tax policy. That's what led to the Great Depression, was a tariff war. It turned it from a recession to a depression to the Great Depression because everybody had tariffs back and forth, and all the economic activity crashed. Took a long time to dig out of that. FDR had to save the world from the Republicans one more time. He had, make work projects and all that sort of thing. That's the road we're kind of heading again, because everything was stable. Biden had things, inherited the mess from Trump, got us back down to under 3% inflation, had the CHIPS bill, building plans, doing these things on target, and all blowing up that, now we're going to look at a recession. We're looking at 10% plus inflation, all because of Dingle Trump doing crazy stuff. So as a guy that worked with tariffs, I can tell you they're not the answer. This is not how you do it. You don't do a general tariff. Yeah, you might want to have a special thing just on electric vehicles because Chinese are making better ones than Tesla for a lot less money. And so you kind of, we'll have a tariff because then that gets the Ford and all the other manufacturers, Tesla's, a chance to, get the EV market going. But you don't put it on coffee, tea, drugs, everything, just to jack up the entire price on everything. That doesn't help anybody. And it's not going to make tea production come here or coffee production come here, right? Really? Come on. Voodoo economics was mentioned before. That's what we're back into. It is kind of economic arson. And take my word for it, this guy's got to be shut down. Congress needs to pull his authority to do tariffs willy-nilly, because he's like a child with a 5-year-old, with a gun, and he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Michael Fetlin, check out my Facebook page, American Respect Equality. This wild ride's not over yet, folks, and it's probably going to get worse because the man just, I think he's got dementia on top of everything else, being very stupid. And nothing good will happen as a result of that. Michael Fetlin, until later.